Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress. Only 17 days till the World Championship match will kick off between Carlsen and Caruana from November 9th in London. As a famous sports commentator says, the sense of anticipation is almost unbearable. On Chess to Impress we keep continuing the build-up, the countdown towards the great match by looking at the 46 earlier events for the World Championship. We've arrived in 1993, where Garry Kasparov defended his title against the Englishman Nigel Short. And a controversial match it was. Let's first look at the qualifiers, the candidates matches played between 1991 and 1993. In the round of 16, Jan Timman beat Robert Hübner. The old warrior Viktor Korchnoi beat Sachs. Yusupov overcame Dolmatov. Ivanchuk destroyed Judassin 4.5-half. Short beat Spielman, an all-English affair. In the previous cycle, Spielman had beaten Short, so Short got his revenge. Gelfand narrowly beat Nikolic, and we see the great Vishwanathan Anand for the first time in the candidates matches. He handily beat Dreyev. Karpov was free in the first round, being the losing finalist of the previous World Championship match. In the quarterfinals, Timman overcame Korchnoi. Yusupov beat Ivanchuk, that was a surprise. Short beat Gelfand, and Karpov only just got the better of Anand. The semi-finals saw Timman beat Yusupov, and a big shock, Nigel Short beat Anatoly Karpov. And it was for the first time since 1972 that Karpov was not involved in a World Championship match. Short went on to qualify to play Kasparov by beating Timman in the final. But then controversy struck. It turned out to be one of the most controversial matches in chess history. Kasparov and Short complained of corruption and a lack of professionalism within FIDE and split from FIDE, from the World Chess Governing Body, to set up the Professional Chess Association, the PCA. In response, FIDE stripped Kasparov of his title and instead held a title match between Karpov and Timman, the last two players that Short had defeated. The matches were won by Kasparov and Karpov respectively, and for the first time in history there were two rival world chess champions, a situation which unfortunately lasted till 2006. So for 13 years we had two world championship cycles. In 1999, FIDE started organizing their knockout world championships, which gave us world champions like Alexander Khalifman, Ruslan Ponomaryov and Rustam Kazimjanov. Very strong, extremely strong grandmasters, but not in the same category as the all-time greats of our game. They were not the strongest players of their era. For this series I will not go into the FIDE World Championship cycle. I may do that in a future series. I will focus on the cycle that later was known as the Classical World Championship. So in this video we're going to look at the Kasparov-Short match. Here we see both players in action. Kasparov had a great start. He won 2 of the first 3 games, so was leading 2.5-half. And we're going to have a look in this video at Game 4, which was played on the 14th of September 1993. Short is white, defending world champion Kasparov is black, and Short opened with e4 as he always does. And Kasparov played the Sicilian as he always does. Knight f3, d6, d4, c takes, knight f6, attacking the e4 pawn, so knight c3, and Kasparov plays his beloved Najdorf variation. Bishop g5, e6, f4, and with queen b6, Kasparov enters one of the sharpest defenses in chess, the poisoned pawn variation, which was a favorite of the great Bobby Fischer. For this video I make use of the annotations from Grandmaster Raymond Keane in the book he wrote about this match. He also was the organizer of the match. So we have a poisoned pawn variation. Queen d2, white gives up a pawn for the initiative, and Kasparov took it. Knight b3, which is Boris Spassky's favorite move, the 10th world champion. Rook b1, attacking the queen straight away, is more common. After knight b3, Kasparov played his queen to a3. Bishop takes, g takes, bishop e2. Both players are following the main theory of this line. Knight c6, Short castled, bishop d7, king h1. That king feels more safe on h1 away from this diagonal, and h5, while rook c8 is nowadays, in 2018, the more popular option. But Kasparov played h5. Here knight b1 was played by Spassky against Fischer in game 11 of the 1972 match, the match of the century, a game that Spassky won. It's also interesting that the Czechoslovakian Grandmaster Lubomir Kavalek helped Bobby Fischer back in 72, and for this match in 1993 he was on Short's team. So knight b1 was played by Spassky back then, but Short played the knight to d1. Kasparov said that this move was a surprise to him and that Short was planning to play his knight around to try and trap black's queen, as we'll see. Kasparov played rook c8, knight e3, queen b4, and c3. Short sacrifices a second pawn. This pawn will now go off the board. Short is 2 points down in the match after 3 games, and in this game he's really going after the world champion. He wants to win. Kasparov took that second pawn, and bishop d3. Now the queen has only got 1 square, and that's on a4, and knight c4, threatening a fork on b6, winning material. Rook c7, the knight goes to b6 anyway, attacking the queen, and queen a3. Now white can make a draw, and maybe that would have been the right thing to do after such a bad start. Make a draw, regroup, and then fight later in the match. The match was 24 games long, with knight c4, queen a4, knight b6. Short could have entered a move repetition, but as Short said, it's not in his character to wimp out of sharp positions, and he did not go for that. After queen a3 he played rook a e1, and Kasparov said that Short is taking a great deal of risk by playing for a win. He has no direct threats, and it's not easy to justify his 2 pawns disadvantage. Kasparov played knight e7, knight back to c4 attacking the queen, and now you have to sacrifice material back with black, because you cannot go to a4 now, because then there is knight takes d6 check. King d8 and knight takes f7 check wins the rook in the corner. King e8, knight takes h8, and this is a winning position for white. So after knight c4, Kasparov had to give up an exchange. Rook takes, bishop takes. Kasparov said that the position is about equal, but easier to play for black. There's also a psychological shift. Short was attacking, but now has to defend, said Kasparov. He played h4 here, and bishop d3. Short explained that this move was directed against knight f5, with possible ideas of sacrificing on g3 to open up the h-file, open up white's king, but Short said that this was an illusion, and he should have played bishop e2 instead. Both players agreed that the bishop is better placed on this square. But bishop d3 was played in the game, and Kasparov played f5. Now that bishop is useless on d3, so Short went to e2 on the 24th move. This bishop can now go to the nice square on f3. That's a nice diagonal. Bishop g7, c4, h3, trying to open up white's king, g3, keeps the h-file closed, and d5 from Kasparov. Here Short said that it was silly that he had not taken on d5. C takes d5 is the best move. Short gave this variation. Knight takes, bishop f3, then black castles, bishop takes, e takes, and Kasparov's position is fine, but white is still playing, said Short. So that after d5 and then c takes d5. But Short played a bad move. He played bishop f3. And that loses a pawn. D takes c4. And Kasparov said white has blundered a key pawn. Kasparov said after the game that Short had intended here to play rook d1. And he gave this variation, then knight d5, bishop takes, e takes, queen takes. That looks like a big blunder because of bishop c6. And we have a skewer. Black will win white's queen. But Short had looked further. There's rook fe1 check. And if the king goes to f8, there is queen takes, b takes, and we have a checkmate on the board. Very nice variation. Very spectacular variation, but it is refuted by, after rook fe1 check in this variation, the king does not go to f8. Black instead plays either queen e7, or even better is bishop e5. And after rook takes e5 check, there is king f8, and there is now no mate on the back rank, as the g7 square is now available for black's king. In this position, black will win white's queen because of the skewer and has a decisive material advantage. So all that after d takes c4 and then rook d1, a variation that Short had seen, but then he saw the refutation. So instead of rook d1, he played rook e3. A tricky move. Kasparov now saw that he had the much better position and was not going to allow complications by being too greedy and taking the knight. After c takes b3, rook takes, attacking the queen, queen a4, and rook takes b7. Black's king is stuck in the middle of the board, and this is not a nice position to play for black, even though objectively he is better. Kasparov did not want any of that, and after the move that Short played, rook e3, he played c3 instead of taking the knight. Short took that pawn and is giving back the exchange that way, which is the best option for white. Bishop takes, queen takes, and on move 30, Kasparov castled. Black has a winning position, he is 2 pawns up. Rook g1, Short is looking for play against black's king. Rook c8 and queen f6, and Short said after the game, it looks like I have some chances against Kasparov's king, but he can defend easily enough. He played bishop c6, those bishops were swapped, and g4 from Short, trying to open lines against black's king. Knight g6, closing the g file, g takes f5, opening up the file for the rook, e takes f5, and queen takes f5. Kasparov took on a2, he's not worried about his king side, everything is under control. He's now attacking the knight on b3, and Short found the best move. Queen takes h3, taking that pawn and protecting the knight. Queen c2 and f5 from Short. He has to keep going forwards. The knight is pinned, but black has a nice move. Rook c3. Here Kasparov said that Short's last chance was knight d4, attacking the queen. And then there is queen e4 check. Queen g2, this is the variation that Kasparov gave. Queen takes, and if you take with the rook, then rook c1 check, rook g1, rook takes, king takes, with a winning knight endgame for black. And if after queen takes g2 check you take with the king, then there is knight e5, and Kasparov said, I'm still winning, but Short has some fighting chances left. But after rook c3, Short did not play knight d4, he played queen g4. Kasparov took the knight, and Short took Kasparov's knight, and queen c6 check, which was the last move of the game. The time control had been reached, this is move 40, and Short resigned, and had now lost 3 of the first 4 games. Why did he resign? You cannot interpose the rook, because then you get checkmated in 2 moves. This is checkmate, so you have to interpose the queen, and then Kasparov simply takes on g2. If you take with the king, there is f takes g6, and this is winning rook and pawn endgame. And if you take with the rook instead, then there is rook b1 check, rook g1, and the rooks are swapped, and after f takes g6, this is a simply winning king and pawn endgame. You and me would also win this against Nigel Short. A dream start for the defending champion. After 4 games he was up 3.5 against half a point. And things did not improve much for the challenger, as you can see from the table. Kasparov also won Game 7, Game 9 and Game 15. And then Short finally tasted victory in Game 16, but it was too late. And after 20 games, Kasparov had 12.5 points and retained his world title. As said, we'll leave the FIDE World Championship alone and keep focusing on the Classical World Championship. 2 years later, Kasparov defended his title against the great Vishy Anand. And that's what the next video is about. Hope you enjoyed this video and that you'll keep counting down towards the Carlsen-Caruana match with me. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel and please leave a comment. If you like the series, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. The link to the series is here. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.